Rainbow Six Siege is a very difficult game, which is why in today's video, I'll be going over 21 things you should never do in Siege. The first of which being that if you know you have sight and there's no pressure on you at all as an attacker, don't just plant in default positions because that's where you're used to planting. The only reason that default positions actually exist when you plant is because they're the safest. For example, this position is safe because the only actual thing it's exposed to is the breach. But if you're an attacker, chances are defenders aren't going to be there. It's not exposed to this door, the attic door, or white stairs. So planting here makes a lot of sense if there's people in the bomb site and on those doorways. But if nobody's here and nobody's pressuring you, you might as well plant in a different spot, like let's say on this breach right here. That way when you back out and they eventually do retake site, you can easily shoot anybody who's actually on the bomb and get a more advantageous plant spot. Now that was just one out of 21 things you should never be doing in Rainbow Six Siege. The second of which being that if you ever go to defuse the bomb, you should never defuse it and then fake it and then make a bunch of noise and sprint around trying to kill people. I get the idea of trying to fake the diffuser. When you use the diffuser noise, they're going to hear that you're diffusing and come to you, and then you want to be ready to shoot them when they do. That makes sense. However, if they hear you diffuse and then start walking towards them or moving around, they're going to know you're faking the plant. So it never ever makes sense to get on the bomb and start walking or moving around. You want to get on the bomb, start diffusing, and then ADS. This doesn't make any noise, but uncrouching and moving around does make noise, which will alert them that you're fake planting. So always stay still after a fake diffuse. Something else that you should never do in Rainbow Six Siege is a more lighthearted tip. And that is, if your teammate gets 4 kills, you should at least give them the chance to get the last one. That way, they get the satisfaction of getting an ace. If you take that last kill, chances are they're going to be a little mad at you, so you don't really want to do that. But if they got their chance to get that last kill and they die, or you're going to die unless you kill this person, then just kill them and win the game. It's not worth losing the round potentially over because you're throwing your life away so that somebody else can get their kill. Something else that can throw rounds is setting up the site the same way twice. So let's pretend that I'm playing Castle and I'm doing a cache CC extend for the bomb site of Gem and Master. And let's say the first round I reinforce these 2 cache walls, and then I reinforce these 3 red walls. And let's say that this setup ends up not working because they opened up both of the walls and just pushed me out of cache and we lost the round. It would not make any logical sense for me to do this exact same site setup a second time. Instead, what I should do is reinforce it a different way. So let's reinforce these CC walls. And instead of reinforcing these 3 walls, let's make a rotate instead. And then with the reinforcements I have left over, let's reinforce these 2 CC walls. Now, if I put a prox alarm on red stairs and a prox alarm on my rafters window, I can actually play in CC as long as I want to. Sure, they can get this wall open, but now I can sit here and shoot them as they come in on red stairs, and even if they drone me out, I can reposition and then play radio and shoot them here. And because I didn't do that last round, they're gonna be less prepared mentally and gadget-wise to be able to counter me doing this the next round. So make sure that if one site setup doesn't work, you don't do it again. You also never want to attack the same way as well. Let's say that round 1, I try to do a ying push into elbow. I smoke my head holes, I smoke my door, and then once those are smoked off, I send in ying candelas into elbow. Then I rush in and either win or lose the round, it doesn't matter. But if I do this strat once and they come back to the basement, they're going to be expecting this push again because it worked. So instead of doing this all again, I'm gonna push from small tower and do a freezer take. To do this, obviously I'll hop in small tower and use my Nook ability to be able to go into the shower hallway. Now I don't have to shoot the default camera and it won't see me, and simultaneously I can clear out the hallway here, clear out top white stairs, clear out server room, and quietly make my way down white stairs. Because if you attack quickly from barrels, they're going to expect a quick push. So not only are you changing where you're pushing, but you're also changing how you're pushing. That way you become completely unpredictable and you're able to get free kills and win the round. The next thing you should never do in Rainbow Six Siege is roam when you're down 0 and 3. If you're ever down 0 and 3, chances are attackers are just going to rush the site because they're confident, cocky, and they just want to finish the game. Instead, if you're down 0 and 3 and now you're on the defense, you want to sit in sight and expect a rush. You can do this by either anchoring with people like Smoke or Fenrir, or by playing trap operators like Capcan and putting your traps near the objective. If we just lost 3 attacking rounds on border, I know they're going to rush up metal, or at least try to, so I'm going to put 2 Capcan traps on the metal door. I also know that people like to try to do an Archives East take, so I'll come over here and put 2 Capcan traps on the east door, and then I know that no matter what, they're going to try to push push my office double door, so I'll put a Kapkan trap somewhere near there as well. Then all you have to do is sit on site and wait. Get on your cameras, see where they're pushing from, and then prepare to hold that area. Because they're most likely going to rush, this will yield you the most amount of success when you're down 0-3. Something else that will yield you a lot of success is not trying to learn every single operator when you're new to the game. There are a lot of operators in Rainbow Six Siege, over 70 to be exact. So going into the game and trying to play and unlock each and every single one of them is going to make it to where you learn a lot slower. Instead, all you have to do is look up online which operators are the best and try to play the top 5 that you're good at and that you know will win you rounds, and stick and learn those top 5 for each side. If you wanted me to give you a good rule of thumb, for the defense, try to play Azami, Fenrir, Smoke, Mute, and Legion. For the attack, try to stick to Ash, Ace, Dokkaebi, Thatcher, and Buck. These are all easy to play operators that are still some of the best operators in the entire game. So if you can learn these 5 that have a variety of different playstyles, you'll be much ahead of the curve later down the line when you want to experiment with learning more operators. The next thing that you should never do if you want to be good at Rainbow Six Siege is backseating when your teammate is trying to clutch around. It's one thing to make callouts like, hey, there's a guy in archives, or hey, there's a guy on this ping trying to plant. But it's another thing trying to tell that player what to do, when to push, and what he's doing wrong. This might be good-spirited and you might genuinely be better than this player, which is fine. The issue is when you do that, you are making this player a lot more nervous, which is going to make that player make more mistakes. His aim might become shakier, it's going to build anxiety in his head, and he's actually more likely to make the wrong decisions even if you're telling him the right ones to make, just because you're building all of this pressure in his head that he has to do well because you're too busy screaming at him everything that he's doing wrong. So instead, just give callouts and let the player learn himself. Something even worse that you should never be doing in Rainbow Six Siege is holding onto utility for too long. I see this mistake especially with area denial operators like Smoke, or people who put down rechargeable abilities like Legion or Wamai. If you don't know, a smoke grenade lasts about 10 seconds, meaning that if you add all 3 of them together, you can waste 30 seconds of time. Most Siege players take this to heart, and they'll wait until the very last 30 seconds to use their smoke grenades as a guaranteed win condition. You shouldn't be doing this. If it is the difference between you being able to hold a position like elbow or not just because you want to save a smoke grenade for a potential plant that may or may not happen, just use that smoke grenade and deny the area so you can stay here for longer. It makes more sense to be able to actually use utility to stall a push that you know is coming based off of audio or information than it does to save it, give up an area for completely free to save more smoke grenades for a push that you don't know will happen or for a timing you don't know you'll have the actual option of. So do not be too afraid to use utility. You can waste some utility. It's better for it to be on the board and wasted than to be in your pocket when you die or lose the round. Not only should you not be holding on to utility, but you also shouldn't be breaking barricades before the end of the prep phase as a defender. If you're gonna break a barricade for a spawn peek or a run out, that's fine. Just wait until after the prep phase. On a map like Chalet where there are drones hidden probably everywhere, if you go to break a barricade like this before the prep phase ends, you will have drones looking at you. They're gonna see then that you're spawn peeking and know you're there, which makes it to where you're probably gonna lose this gunfight. Instead, sit near the barricade and wait for the prep phase to be finished. Once the prep phase is finished, you can walk up, slowly shoot the barricade, and then you can go for your spawn peek and they will have no idea you're spawn peeking. You still might get fried though, but at least you'll have more of an advantage when you're going for the spawn peek in the first place. Speaking of the Boss G though, how do you counter it? Well, the thing about Boss G players is you want to have very good first shot accuracy, because if you don't hit your first shot, there's a lot of time in between that and the next shot that the attackers can use to kill you. So as an attacker, if you want to actually counter the Boss G, you want to abuse this mechanic by making them shoot a first bullet and then swinging them. You never just want to dry swing a Boss G ever. If you dry swing a Boss G, they're just gonna shoot you when you peek, which is why you're having such trouble countering them right now. Instead, you want to bait out that first shot by quick peeking, by knife peeking, by making noise and pre-firing, or doing anything you can to bait out that bullet, and once you hear that bullet, then you swing and go for the kill. If you don't end up hitting that, then you go to the next doorway, do the same thing, pressure them, and then go for the kill once you've heard that shot. Or you can like use a drone and use a drone to bait them, and then go for the shot, but either way, never ever dry peek a boss G off of 0 info before you bait out the first shot. Speaking of things you should never do as an attacker, if you're playing an entry fragger, you should never be picking up the bomb. I mean, just think about it. If you're playing Ashe and you're trying to entry frag into server and you end up actually dying, now the defenders can just sit and hold the diffuser and kill anybody who tries to come forward with it. Because entry fraggers are the most aggressive and map controlling, and they're typically the first ones in gunfights and dying, if you take the diffuser as an entry fragger, you're bound to just give it to them for free. Moving it back to the attack though, a mistake that you should never be making is trying to swing through smoke grenades. Let's imagine that this door is smoked from an attacker who is Skybridge. If you try to swing through this smoke grenade, you don't know where your crosshair is even gonna end up, much less where the enemies are holding you from, and you're especially not going to be able to kill them if you try to do this because they will have more reaction time due to the fact that they're probably watching that smoke waiting for you. If I know there's a guy Skybridge and I swing out of the smoke grenade, sure, I can have good crosshair placement and probably kill him, but I don't know if there's a guy outside this window, maybe repelled on that window, maybe on the balcony, on the roof holding my walk up. We just don't know. There could be a guy on the breach for all we know, but because smoke is blocking your vision, you shouldn't walk through it and just blindly try to get a kill and get your head blown off because of it. Something else that you should never be doing, no matter if you're a defender or if you're an attacker, is tolerating toxic teammates. It's one thing to just have thick skin, but if somebody is genuinely going to be toxic, you could genuinely be the most nonchalant person out there, and it will still affect your mental whether you want to admit it or not. It's going to make you play sloppier, it's going to make it to where you don't trust that teammate, it'll probably make you want to team kill that teammate, so it's never really worth having them unmuted if they're just going to be toxic. You might miss a call out here and there, but honestly, that doesn't really affect me that much, especially if you have a good set of ears. So if you have a toxic teammate, never leave them unmuted. Something else that you should never be doing in your Siege game is warming up for more than 30 minutes. When you're warming up for more than 30 minutes, at this point, you're just aim training. You don't need to be warming up for that long. Sure, you might think that it's actually helping your aim, but at a certain point, it kinda isn't. All it's doing is taking away time from ranked that you could be playing, and because you're actually only training in aim trainers, you're going to be less prepared than if you had warmed up less for when you go into an actual game that isn't just shooting red orbs. At this point, it becomes tedious and pointless, and it isn't warming up anymore, it's simply just aim training. Something else that you should never do in Rainbow Six Siege is expecting your teammates to drone efficiently. Something else you should never be doing in Siege is expecting your teammates to drone you in. I've had times where my teammates are actually going and doing the thing that I want them to do, which is droning me in, and even then, they still will not check corners and will both run in and die to a cav who's prone under a desk. That has happened to me way more times than I can count. So it is better, even if they're droning you in, to just drone behind them and check every corner so that at least if you do die to somebody, it's your fault and not theirs. So there's something to at least be learned from that. Something else you should never trust your teammates to do is watching angles. Let's say there's two possible places that they can push from, front sight and back sight, and you're holding front sight. You see that your teammate is holding back sight. You'd expect, hey, my teammate's holding back sight. I shouldn't have to watch it. I'm gonna hold the front side of the map to see if they're gonna do a default push. And then somehow there is an enemy behind you and your teammate just let him in sight and didn't see him. That has happened to me more times than I can count, especially on the attack. If I'm holding the left side of breach and someone's holding the right side of breach, so I'm expecting, hey, if they swing the left, my guy's got it from the right. Nope, he just let him walk right through because he was watching the same angle I was. So just never, ever trust your teammates to watch an angle for you and just put yourself in positions where you don't even have to rely on a teammate to do that in the first place. Something else you should never rely on in Siege is default settings. I have a pretty high-end PC, so my default settings are on all ultra. I do purposefully set them this way for recording as well, but this is really bad for the average player, and it would tank my FPS. The average controls also suck. On default, you have gadget and drone deployment both on standard. This is bad for various reasons, so you want to turn this to advanced. Even your HUD, you can turn some stuff off. You can change around audio settings, you can change your crosshair color. A lot of these settings that come default are bad and you need to change them. Something else you need to change is the way that you open up barricades on attack. You should never be opening up barricades straight on like I just did, especially if you are repelled. Opening up a barricade right next to the barricade like this makes it to where when you do that, you will get shot, especially if they're close to the window ready for you to open the barricade. Instead, open a barricade from the side just like this at an angle. Opening up the barricade like this allows you to open it up fully even if it's from an angle, but they can't actually shoot you from here. You can also do do it upside down, or do it from super far away. You don't really have to see actually much of the barricade to completely open it, just like I did. This puts you at way less risk and can prevent a lot of deaths when you open windows from an off angle. Moving it back to the defense, something you should never do is reinforce default walls when you have a mirror. Let's take this church triple wall for example. A lot of the times you'll have head holes here with 2 reinforcements just like this. As a defender, you might be thinking, well, typically mirrors put their mirror on this wall, so I'll just reinforce this one and then put head holes here and it'll be fine. But what you don't know is sometimes mirrors have strats that you don't. What if your mirror wants to do the other high-level mirror strat, where she reinforces the left side and then opens up the middle? If your mirror wanted to do this strat, but you would reinforce the middle thinking that you had good intentions, she wouldn't be able to do it, which would have messed up her entire strategy. So make sure that you never, ever reinforce any of the default walls that mirrors like to put their windows on, just in case you might ruin their strategy. Something else you should never be doing on the defense is not breaking glass before you castle a window. A lot of people know that with the new castle update that came out a few years ago, you can actually put a castle barricade over a normal one. This will destroy the normal barricade behind it and leave your castle, but it won't destroy the glass. So you want to make sure that before you actually castle off a window, you put a punch in the barricade like this to break the glass, so that when you eventually do end up castling the window, you'll be able to hear people better because the glass isn't there to protect the sound cues that they're making. But with that out of the way, that is it for today's video. My name is Alka. Check out this next video, and I hope we'll see you there.